When a man swallows the fluid of women, it's not just about the physical. It's about what we absorb from the people we let close to us. Every single relationship you have is an exchange. You're not just swapping words or bodies, you're exchanging energy, belief systems, confidence, doubt, dreams, and fears. That's the real fluid I'm talking about. The invisible transfer that happens when two people trust each other enough to be vulnerable, to let their guard down, to open up completely. And here's the truth. You are taking in more than you think. Every conversation, every late-night confession, every moment of intimacy, whether emotional or physical, is an exchange. And every time you swallow someone's essence, you are making it part of you. If that essence is strong, confident, loving, and hopeful, it will feed you. It will nourish your mind, your body, and your ambitions. But if it's full of bitterness, resentment, fear, and insecurity, it will poison you. You won't notice it right away, but it will creep in. You'll start speaking their language of doubt. You'll start hesitating where you used to leap. You'll start feeling heavy in places you once felt light. And then you'll wake up one day realizing that some of the weight you've been carrying isn't even yours, it was handed to you, poured into you, and you swallowed it without question. We do this all the time, and it's not just men and women. It's friendships, family, co-workers, anyone you let get close. The fluid you're taking in is their energy, their stories, their vision, or their lack of it. That's why you have to be intentional about who you let that close. Not careful, not paranoid, intentional. Because here's the thing, when you accept what someone gives you, you're saying yes to making it part of your life, your personality, your decisions. You're building your future with their material. And if their material is solid, you grow. But if it's cracked and toxic, you crumble. This is why boundaries matter. This is why you have to check your own energy before you offer it to someone else. Because you are someone's fluid too. They are swallowing what you put out into the world. Your words, your attitude, your habits, they're feeding off it. So ask yourself, what am I giving? Am I passing on love or fear? Am I nourishing or draining? Because whether you know it or not, someone is taking it in. We think intimacy is just physical, but the truth is, it's emotional, mental, spiritual. It's the transfer of invisible weight. And when you take it in, it changes you. So choose wisely. Stop taking in what's toxic. Stop offering what's toxic. The people in your life will become part of you, just like you will become part of them. You are not just swallowing fluids, you are swallowing futures. And the future you end up living depends on whether what you take in is poison or fuel. That choice is yours every single day. Every single relationship you have, whether you realize it or not, is an exchange of energy, beliefs, and emotions. This isn't something you can switch off or avoid. It happens every time you talk to someone, every time you spend time with them, every time you let them get close enough to see the real you. You are constantly taking in parts of who they are, and they are constantly taking in parts of who you are. Think about the last time you spent hours with someone who was genuinely excited about life, driven, and full of ideas. You probably left that interaction feeling a little more optimistic, a little more motivated, maybe even a little more courageous about your own goals. That's not an accident. That's because you absorbed some of their energy and beliefs. Now think about the opposite. You spend an afternoon with someone who's negative, cynical, or constantly complaining. You might have started the day feeling fine, but by the time you leave, you feel tired, drained, maybe even irritated about things you weren't thinking about before. Again, not an accident. That's the transfer in action. Humans are wired for emotional contagion. We mirror each other. The tone in someone's voice, the language they use, the stories they tell, the way they carry themselves, it all seeps into us, especially when we trust them or spend significant time around them. And this goes beyond moods. Beliefs are contagious too. If you're around someone who consistently doubts themselves, who says things like, "People like us never get ahead," or, "It's impossible to change," you start to internalize those ideas, even if you didn't believe them before. They can become part of your subconscious operating system, influencing decisions you make without you realizing where the influence came from. The opposite is also true. If you're around someone who truly believes in growth, who speaks from a place of possibility and personal responsibility, you start to internalize those beliefs as well. You find yourself thinking bigger, seeing more opportunities, and taking action you wouldn't have taken on your own. Emotions work in the same way. You've probably noticed that anxiety can spread like wildfire in a group. If one person is visibly tense or panicked, it doesn't take long for others to feel the same. Joy works that way too. Being around people who are genuinely happy and present can elevate your own mood, even if nothing in your circumstances has changed. Over time, these repeated exchanges shape your emotional baseline. If your circle is full of stress, anger, or fear, you start to feel like that's normal. If your circle radiates hope, gratitude, and excitement, that becomes your normal instead. The key is that this transfer isn't just happening in obvious, high-energy moments. It happens quietly, subtly, in the way someone responds to your news, in the way they talk about their own life, in the way they carry themselves when they're facing challenges. You are picking up cues from their posture, their language, their emotional tone, and you're filing those cues away in your brain as reference points for how life works. Over weeks, months, and years, those reference points build the framework for your own worldview. This is why people who grow up in the same household often share similar fears, habits, and values, not because they consciously agreed on them, but because they absorbed them from each other without even noticing. This absorption is especially powerful when it comes from people you trust, admire, or love. When someone matters to you, your brain lowers its guard. You're less likely to question their beliefs or resist their emotional state, because your connection creates an automatic sense of alignment. It's the same reason we pick up the accents, slang, or mannerisms of people we spend a lot of time with. It's not a deliberate choice, it's a subconscious adaptation. This is also why you can feel someone's stress even when they're not saying a word about it, or why you can feel calm in the presence of someone who's deeply grounded, even if the situation around you is chaotic. What's important to understand is that this transfer doesn't require you to agree with the person or even to notice it happening. You can tell yourself that someone's pessimism won't affect you, but your subconscious is still recording their words, their expressions, their reactions, and storing them for later use. Those stored impressions influence your own automatic reactions, sometimes years down the line. This is why people often realize much later that their own limitations, fears, or expectations came directly from someone else's narrative. The constant exchange of energy, beliefs, and emotions is part of being human. It's unavoidable, and it's powerful. Every person you let close enough into your life is leaving a mark on how you think, how you feel, and how you see the world. Every conversation is planting seeds, some that will grow into motivation and clarity, and others that will grow into doubt and confusion. This is not about weakness or being easily influenced, it's about the reality of connection. We are designed to connect deeply, and connection always means exchange. The more time and emotional space you give someone, the more of their essence you carry with you. And whether you're conscious of it or not, that essence becomes part of your inner voice, part of your daily habits, and part of the lens you use to interpret every experience you have. What you take in becomes part of you, whether it's fuel or poison. The moment you allow someone's words, energy, or emotional state into your space, you're opening the door for it to integrate into your own mental and emotional framework. This isn't just about fleeting moods or temporary impressions. It's about the way repeated exposure hardwires itself into your thinking, your self-image, and your behavior. If you're consistently surrounded by voices that uplift, challenge, and inspire you, you'll start to think in ways that move you forward. You'll feel more capable, more willing to take risks, and more grounded in your own potential. On the other hand, if you're constantly exposed to discouragement, criticism, or cynicism, those inputs will eventually find a home in your mind. They will color the way you see yourself in the world, sometimes without you even realizing it's happening. The human mind isn't a closed system. It's porous. Every conversation, every interaction, every moment of attention you give to another person is an opportunity for something from them to seep into you. That something can be encouragement, vision, and resilience, or it can be doubt, fear, and resignation. It doesn't matter whether you actively agree with them in the moment, your subconscious mind records it all. The tone of their voice, the way they react to challenges, the stories they tell about themselves and others, these are all data points your brain stores, and over time they form part of your own operating system. This is why certain phrases, attitudes, or emotional patterns you absorbed years ago can suddenly surface in your own behavior without conscious thought. They've been living in you long enough to feel natural. When the influence is positive, it becomes a source of fuel. Fuel is what pushes you through obstacles, what keeps you steady when things are uncertain, what reminds you that possibilities exist even when your circumstances seem to say otherwise. Being fueled by someone's vision, their courage, their ability to reframe challenges as opportunities, can completely change the trajectory of your life. You begin to adopt their language of possibility, to see setbacks as temporary, to take ownership of your role in creating change. That fuel is not just motivational fluff, it's psychological nutrition, feeding the parts of you that are responsible for persistence, creativity, and growth. But the reverse is equally powerful. Poison doesn't always look like poison at first. It can come disguised as casual comments, as just being realistic, as harmless jokes or observations. It can be a subtle sigh when you share a new idea, or an eye roll when you express excitement about a goal. Poison can be someone repeatedly telling you that you're lucky just to have what you have, so you shouldn't aim higher. It can be a friend who constantly points out risks without ever acknowledging potential rewards. These small doses build up over time. They erode your confidence, make you second-guess yourself, and condition you to expect less from life. And because the process is gradual, you may not notice the damage until your thinking has shifted so far that you no longer take the actions you once would have. The challenge is that the mind doesn't have an automatic filter for what's fuel and what's poison. It absorbs both with the same openness. Your emotional connections amplify this effect. When you care about someone, their input bypasses your defenses more easily. If you deeply respect them, their beliefs carry more weight in shaping your own. This is why relationships are so influential. They are not just emotional bonds, they are pipelines of energy, beliefs, and habits flowing in both directions. And the more consistent the flow, the deeper the integration. Even the stories you tell yourself are often echoes of what you've taken in from others. A belief like, "I'm not good at public speaking," might trace back to a single comment someone made when you were a teenager. A conviction that money is hard to come by could have originated from hearing that sentiment repeated by people you trusted growing up. Over years, these borrowed beliefs solidify, and you start to live as though they are absolute truths. The same process happens with empowering beliefs. If you've repeatedly been told that you're resourceful, resilient, or capable, you begin to act in alignment with that identity, making choices that reinforce it. Because what you take in becomes part of you, awareness is essential. Without noticing, you can become a reflection of the voices and energies you've allowed into your life. The language you use, the goals you set, the way you respond to stress, all of it is shaped by the accumulation of influences you've absorbed. And once those influences are inside, they don't just sit there passively. They guide your reactions, your decisions, and your expectations about what's possible for you. Fuel pushes you forward with clarity and purpose. Poison keeps you stuck in cycles of hesitation and fear. The difference between the two isn't always obvious in the moment, but over time it becomes the difference between living a life that expands and one that contracts. Boundaries protect you from toxic transfers. Every time you interact with another person, there is an exchange happening, and without clear boundaries, you absorb more than you intend to. A boundary is not just a wall to keep people out, it's a filter that allows in what is healthy and blocks what is harmful. When you don't have those filters in place, you can find yourself carrying emotions, beliefs, and expectations that don't belong to you. These foreign influences can quietly reshape how you think and feel, and before long you may be living according to someone else's fears, limitations, or worldview without ever having made a conscious decision to adopt them. The absence of boundaries leaves you open to the constant flow of other people's energy, and not all of that energy is good for you. Boundaries start with self-awareness. You have to know what kind of energy you want in your life, what values you're committed to, and what emotional states you're willing to nurture. Without that clarity, it's impossible to recognize when something toxic is seeping in. Toxic transfers aren't always obvious. They can be subtle, like someone repeatedly dismissing your dreams with a laugh, offering backhanded compliments, or consistently framing the world as dangerous and hopeless. Without boundaries, those messages can slip into your mind unchecked. They lodge themselves in your thinking, and over time they can alter your behavior and choices. You might start hesitating more, doubting yourself more, or seeing obstacles where you used to see opportunities. Setting boundaries is not about cutting people off or avoiding all negativity. It's about deciding how much access someone has to your attention, your emotional space, and your decision-making process. There are people who thrive on sharing their stress, their anger, or their cynicism, and they will gladly pour it into anyone who is willing to listen. If you're not careful, you'll end up carrying that emotional weight for them, and it will influence your own mindset. Boundaries help you decide when to listen, when to engage, and when to step back. They help you separate empathy from absorption, caring about someone's struggles without taking those struggles on as your own. Physical boundaries matter, but so do emotional and mental ones. You can spend time with someone and still protect your mental space by refusing to internalize their negativity. This might mean changing the subject when the conversation turns toxic, limiting the time you spend discussing certain topics, or consciously reminding yourself that their beliefs and fears belong to them, not to you. Sometimes it means limiting contact altogether, especially when a person's influence consistently leaves you feeling drained, doubtful, or small. These decisions are rarely easy, especially when the person is someone you care about, but protecting your mental and emotional health has to be a priority if you want to stay aligned with your own values and goals. Boundaries are also about managing your own availability. Not every text needs an immediate reply, not every invitation needs a yes, and not every complaint needs your emotional investment. The more available you are to absorb whatever others are putting out, the less capacity you have for your own thoughts, feelings, and growth. Saying no is a form of boundary. Declining certain conversations is a form of boundary. Choosing not to explain or justify those boundaries to people who won't understand them is, in itself, a boundary. These are the practices that protect you from the kind of constant exposure that leads to toxic transfers. One of the challenges with boundaries is the fear of how others will react. People who are used to having unlimited access to you, your time, your attention, your emotional space, may resist when you start setting limits. They might accuse you of being distant, selfish, or unkind. This resistance is often a sign that the boundary is necessary. It reveals how much they have been relying on you to carry their energy, often at the expense of your own well-being. Maintaining the boundary despite their reaction is a sign that you are taking responsibility for what you allow into your life. It's important to recognize that boundaries also work in the positive direction. They create space for healthy influences to flourish. When you protect yourself from toxic inputs, you make more room for people who bring clarity, encouragement, and genuine support. You're not just avoiding harm, you're actively cultivating an environment where positive transfers can happen. In this way, boundaries aren't restrictive, they are liberating. They allow you to engage deeply with the people and ideas that strengthen you while minimizing the impact of those that weaken you. This is how boundaries protect you. They keep the gates to your inner life guarded, letting in what builds you and keeping out what breaks you down.